Our third speaker is a friend of mine, Micki Edelsohn. Her story goes back over 50 years, and believe me, it's been quite a journey. Micki's been working on her memoirs about this journey with VOR's former Director of Governmental Affairs, Tamie Hopp. Tammie's been helping her edit the book and serving as a sounding board through the process. I'm very proud to introduce two more of my good friends, Micki Edelsohn and Tamie Hopp.
Thanks, Hugo. Micki, do you want me to kind of kick off an introduction and then take you through your memoir?
Yep, go ahead.
That would be fun. Well, as Hugo said, Micki reached out to me about a year ago now. I was looking at the calendar, Micki, and it's hard to believe that much time has gone by, but she had come across an article I wrote back in 2014, which, as anyone who knows Micki or even hearkening to Hugo's introduction, she keeps everything and she is incredibly organized. So it was no surprise that she found this article. I can say that we did not work all that closely together back in my VOR days. I mean, we were certainly rowing in the same direction then, as you'll hear today as she goes through her memoir, but we weren't all that close. So it was truly this article that caused her to track me down, I guess. And her story was so compelling and her lived experience so similar to all of yours that it was a project I really couldn't turn away from. As Hugo said, initially she reached out to have me help write it, which in hindsight was kind of a ridiculous notion. This is her lived experience, and she is an incredible writer. She not only has all of the background, but she really somehow put all these words on paper in record time. Her son, Andrew, will probably disagree that it was in record time, but she really did pull this together very well, very quickly. So my role quickly became one of being a sounding board, editing, some fact checking, but again, she had all the background, so I didn't even have to do much of that. Shortly after she reached out to me, she sent me a little note with some documentation, a big binder of stuff. And the note she sent, the cover note she sent, made me realize that I had made the right decision in stepping into this project in whatever way I could be helpful. And I want to read that to you now before turning it over to Micki. She said, "Tamie, if you follow my journey, you will see that I have not changed. I truly believe that adults with IDD should have the right to live as active members of our communities, and they deserve to have a variety of housing options. Our government should not decide where and with whom we should live. Unfortunately, as we all know, in order to have choices, most families will depend on our government for help. Any model can and should work with the right amount of funding. As I have said ad nauseum, it doesn't matter if Robert lives in an intentional community, a neighborhood group home, a farm, his own apartment, in our home, or a tent in our backyard. He will need the same amount of daily support by a staff person, regardless of setting." I think that tees up her memoir really very well, as the cover will indicate, and maybe now is a good time to put the cover up, the image of the cover. She is definitely a mom with a megaphone who had a 50-year journey to tell. So I'm going to turn it over to Micki. Whatever intro you'd like to provide, Micki, but certainly let's start with your early days, that scripted life you write about in the early chapters of your book.
Okay, well, I was really intrigued listening to Jill and to Kit, and to kind of give everyone again a perspective. Jill started off by talking about this saving babies. All of these people were going to save these children, and then when they're here. And I would not even be talking to any of you today if in 1972 we had fetal monitoring. That's how old I am. And the other two speakers are talking about their children who were in their, teenage years, 20s, Here I am. And last night we had a 50th birthday party for Robert Edelsohn. So this is kind of going to give you a perspective on, who I am, why I decided to do what I'm doing. So what happened was Robert moved into he went through the usual schooling and all, but he moved into a group home in 1995 with a full-time job, benefits and all that. So think about this. Since 95, he lives in a house down the street from where we live, goes to a job. I'm not going to get into that part right now, but then we had COVID. Now we've seen Robert. We're very active in his life, but Robert, we decided to bring Robert back to live with us during COVID because of the pressure on the staff, et cetera, et cetera. And that really, for so many reasons, and because of the journey, I thought, you know, I really have to just document what has happened to us and our life. I mean, I was just determined because here's Robert, we haven't had here day in and day out. And Robert, we're fortunate, does not have all the issues that you hear about, you know, I know with Jill and some of these families. With severe autism. Actually, Robert's just texting me, believe it or not, from a Phillies baseball game as I'm talking to you to show you that he can text. But the point of so I'm listening, you know, I'm thinking about how am I going to do this? But my first thought before I even got to Tamie is we all are in this together. We all have a variation on a theme. So when I say, well, you know, when I hear kid, none of us decide, oh, gee, wouldn't it be great to have a kid with a disability if we're going to have a child. But I wanted to make it readable to like an average person to want to pick up this book, what would get some of this memoir, and say, what's this about? And to make it easy reading, so to speak. So I first reached out actually to 2 other women that my son was friendly with because they were clueless. I said, let me talk to you about, you know, they knew Andrew, my older son, they knew about Robert, because I wanted the evolution of disability policies to be interesting, so to speak. Or, gee, I didn't understand that. Oh, well, yeah, he lives in a group home. Well, did you ever think about how that gets paid for or how it works? So they found it interesting because I wanted to make it, we're all singing the same song here, really. It's just a variation on a theme. And so they were the first women, you know, that I reached out to. And then I was thinking, well, if I'm going to make it interesting getting into the disability policy issue, I need to have somebody that really understands it, because we all know when we get beyond our little disability community, there are going to be people out there that are going to take one word that's right or wrong, or I didn't say it exactly the same way, and that's going to be the end. They're going to attack. I'm going to be attacked. I know that. So I have Tamie's Pendulum, and I'm reading that, and I hand it to my husband. He says, "You got to contact her, find her. Where is she?" And actually through Hugo, I said, "Hugo, got to find Tamie." And that's really how, you know, I got Tamie involved, because I had really, you know, and thank you for the compliment about being a writer. No, I do not think, you know, I read Jill Escher all the time. I read Amy Lutz, but this is just like a story. And as I tell the story, I talk about policy changes that gave me this kind of, you know, you have these things are moving along and all of a sudden you kind of go, gee, is something changing? No, it's just me. It's not really happening. And that's where, you know, the story, as I talked about, you know, growing up and how I'm going to find a group home and like all of us, what are we going to do now? And so I started trying to get the reader involved in this typical teenager, you know, now I just, you know, turned 79, you know, how am I going to have the perfect life? And
So,
that, yeah.
So Micki, yeah, I think, and I can vouch for you that those early years, and you are a writer, but you're an even better storyteller. Those early years really are engaging for the reader. You did a masterful job really throughout the book in not making it so wonky that somebody has to be involved in these issues. It'll be really relatable, and I think most helpful, frankly, to families who are just entering adulthood with their son or daughter with a disability and what things to prepare for. So maybe we start there. You said earlier in almost an offhanded way that Robert was living in a group home. What I didn't mention in the introduction, that not only is Micki a mother, but was also a group home builder. And I think that how Homes for Life Foundation came to be and the difference you made with those homes is an interesting piece of your story. Would you mind starting there?
Yeah, okay. Well, as I said, I was just sort of, being the mom and thinking, well, he's aging out, now what? And the story, which I've told thousands of times, is we're living in our neighborhood. I'm figuring out what's going to happen with Robert, and we had a new neighbor named Charlie Cawley. He and his wife moved into our neighborhood, and he came from the Baltimore area, and he was part of Maryland National, this MB&A credit card division. And I invited him to a neighborhood cocktail party. I was already thinking about building a group home, and I had a little money. I was going to do fundraising, and he overheard a conversation, said, "Gee, that's interesting." And he handed me his business card, said, "I'd like to help you." Well, I had never seen this person or his wife. End of story. They leave. He wants to talk to me. I go to their home. His wife was a special ed teacher. So they were familiar, even though they did not have a child with a disability. What happened is it's really a remarkable story. I met with him. I'm trying to do it quickly, but he said, I had $65,000 and I was going to ask him for $25,000. I had never done that. I've never sat in a corporate office before asking for that kind of money. And he said, well, and you have to imagine this credit card company grew into a $35 billion years company. But he said, I'd like to help you. I know you want $25,000. I'll give you that, but we, the people of MB&A, will build you a house and I'll employ the people. And I'm like, you sit in these meetings and you can't even understand what this person's saying to you, because I'm going in nervous, asking for $25,000. But that started the ball rolling. And this man started employing people with intellectual disabilities. Now, as the book progresses, Robert basically, I would say, is at maybe a 6-year-old level. Robert Edelsohn has worked for now Bank of America. They bought the company since 1994. He makes more money than the staff. He has a full-time job with benefits. But as these group homes, and that's how I started Homes for Life. But you have to remember, I kind of had this sugar daddy. I live in a small town. This is Delaware. We're a very small state. We don't even have 1 million people, but other families heard about this. And, everybody's calling me now. Did you hear, Micki got money for a group home. Micki found a job. And that's how that story evolved. So then I was not prepared in my 40s to start a business, so to speak. It just was my whole life has been serendipity.
Well, speak to the model, though. The model is really smart and unique. You were building the homes, but you were building the homes and then what?
Okay, but I was building, and it was it. Don't ask me why. I chose the number 4. And I thought, well, if people are more, significantly impaired, that's a lot of people and a lot of staff in a home. If the people are more high functioning, then you get more personality, interacting or not interacting, or little in-house fighting. And for whatever reason, I said 4 is a nice number. I developed the house because I wanted, some of the houses don't need awake staff. So what happened was I said, well, let's put like a little mini apartment here. A person can live here. They don't, get, it's free, free apartment. There's a door in and out, a bedroom, a little living room, their own bathroom, the staff quarters. So I made it as detailed as possible. And again, I was really shooting from the hip, and I was sort of designing these homes. So there were really all of the houses, we have 25 homes, were just 4-person homes.
And but what I really love about the models, you weren't also then providing the services.
No.
So you built the homes debt free, deeded them to the Ark
the
of
Ark
Delaware.
and they became a landlord. So it's ironic. And if you go, this is in the 90s. If we fast forward to the HGBS setting rule, they don't want groups to own and operate. They don't want the providers to own the home and provide the services. And again, just by chance, the Ark of Delaware was in the business of trying to build a housing program. So here's the Ark now. I'm deeding these homes over to the Ark for maintenance. So they own the home now and they just maintain them. But now it's up to RDDS to find the agency to provide the services within the home. So let's
and Micki, what's RDDS for the audience?
Developmental disability services.
The
our state.
Right.
So
essentially,
yeah,
go ahead.
It left me sort of I could do what I was good at, raise money, build a home. Here's the home now. It took the onus off of me to maintain that, as they were growing, I couldn't maintain them. And then the state was finding the people. I didn't know. I had no control. I wanted to do what I thought I was good at.
Well, and it was because as just about everyone on this call knows, if a provider goes out of business, to state the obvious, it's extremely disruptive for the people being supported. Whereas in your model, the people could continue living in that home. It was if the provider went out of business. So they didn't have to move. It was then a matter of the state finding another provider for those individuals. So it offered a level of stability in a system where, there wasn't stability and still isn't among many community-based providers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move you forward to the wake-up call, because as you've said during many of our conversations, you were having a good time. You were raising money, building beautiful homes, and people loved what you were doing. As you got more involved in this space, you then pursued appointment on the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities and secured that. And well, speak to that. And I think that's essentially, it was a second meeting of the PCPID where you had your wake-up call. Yeah,
well, and even before that, I had talked about this in an endowed chair at the University of Delaware. But it was funny, as the houses were being built and I would meet with the Ark of Delaware every other month with the state, and they would say, so many people are going to need a home. We're going to need 2 homes, 4 homes. And I'd sit at a meeting and they would say how many people are going to need a group home model. I'd just raise my hand and go, oh, I can do that. And I'd volunteer and get the money and build the houses. And then I thought, well, I became very involved with the University of Delaware because the man is Charlie Cawley, who was, the CEO of MBNA, was on the board of the university. And I heard about the Center for Disability Studies. That's when all of these, all these different things were evolving. And the president of the university told me about the Center for Disability Studies. So I thought I would get involved and to get them to help train and get the students in the disability programs involved with the adults, because they all want to work with the little ones, but when they're grown up and it's not so cute anymore, how are we going to care for these people? That's when I started the Robert Edelsohn chair. So I had to raise money for that. And we decided to build group homes adjacent to the campus, so that the students could go and work with the population. So that was not going as I had planned and as we had planned. And there's a really interesting chapter about that. And then I thought, something's going on here. Something's happening. Mm-hmm. And that's when, of course, and then I do the section on, getting involved and knowing people. I remember Biden became the vice president, and I thought, here's my opportunity to get on the President's Committee. And boy, when I walked through the doors and I saw what was going on, that was when I realized that this model that money, it was all about money, basically. And it's ironic in
Yeah,
the,
speak specifically.
but it's interesting that Jill was here first because she wrote a whole thing on this.
Mhm.
And in the end, I have a whole epilogue. So I hear the voices of other, and I have Jill's blog. Again, it's the government is, how do you save money? You save money by taking programs that are expensive. You know, the ICFs, you know, were the first model. Then we're going to do the neighborhood group home model. Well, when they realized, again, as I said, it's not about the model, stupid. It's about the services needed within the model. That is the expensive part. And when I got on the president's committee, that was when I realized when they were going to change the Medicaid waiver, what was community, that's when I knew the people that want these models were going to be in jeopardy, because they were their model was keep your kid in your home for as long as possible.
And that you specifically, that is one of the better chapters relative to disability policy. You're talking about being in your second meeting of the PCPID. Nancy Thaler is speaking. She puts up a chart, and there it is in black and white with all of the funding aligned with the various settings to include family home, $25,000 a year.
Yeah, so she would start, I mean, I was thinking, I can't believe she would actually put up these, you know, these slides actually saying to us, if you're paying attention. So she would start with the ICF, and all of this is in the memoir. And this was her PowerPoint. You know, the ICF was, you know, 120,000 a year. The neighborhood group home was 75. Adult foster care, well, shared living, which we know is adult foster care, 45,000. And then, you know, your kid in your home, 25,000. And this is government funding going to a certain category. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. And then she was saying, and when a bed becomes available, and I got the call, you know, I'm saying, well, now I'm 86 and in my own adult diapers, and they call and say, would you like, I'm going, no, thanks. I'm having a great life. I'm going, wait a minute, this doesn't look right to me. I don't think I'm going to have a great life if my son is living with me forever. And you know, then we've been put on the defensive. It's as if we want to sort of get rid of our kids. You know, they to me, we have to explain why, you know, as we're talking about, with kids talking about why it's better for someone to be in, you know, the dirty word sheltered workshop now, where it's better for them to be in that setting rather than, you know, being with other people. And I can, to just add to the conversation, I can tell you, Robert, and of the 25 homes, the house that Robert, just by chance, are the 4 original men. They have lived together since December of 1995. And I can tell you, I can take you into the house. They're fairly high functioning. I would say Robert's probably the lowest functioning, and he's not too bad. You can sit there. They do not, you know, they sort of live side by side. You go and they're having dinner. They're not talking to each other like we would. Robert's friendlier with the staff. So this idea that they're becoming friends, and it's absurd to me. And I've watched it for 30 some years.
So it was this part in your story where I thought, in terms of lived experiences, your world really collided with the typical VOR member. You really felt compelled at this point, because these beautiful homes that you were building were suddenly no longer in vogue for no other reason than money and ideology. So you went home and certainly after contemplation decided this isn't something you can keep to yourself. So I think this is when you began to engage families speaking up. Am I correct in that timeline?
Yes.
And then
That's
Go
what
ahead.
I did. Yeah, so I reached out, and again, I didn't, because I was getting so many calls all the time. You can imagine, I'm building houses and people, it's a small town and they wanted help. And I'm thinking, well, I can give a home, but it's up to DDS or, to decide who goes in the home. I can't, I can't give you a place. I can't give you a waiver. I can't give you that waiver. So I started Family Speaking Up because I wanted families to understand why they needed to get involved in policy, in disability policies. And that's when I became, basically, I was called in one meeting the enemy of the state, because our state, like so many states, were now watching the Administration for Community Living. We were watching under HHS, now everything, the Department of Aging and Disabilities, they were making the Administration for Community Living. Their version of community was coming under one big umbrella, and we were not going to be, they were not going to have this model, or it was going to be a long time before you could get that type of model.
Yeah.
If anything was good about being old, this that Robert got into the system, I can tell you today, unless we wanted to private pay, there's no reason in the world that Robert would be in a group home, because I had that opportunity in 1990.
Mm-hmm. So you, as part of Families Speaking Up, created this beautiful report. You got the attention of the Ford Foundation, and through some assistance with them, wrote this beautiful report. But again, not unlike many of the folks on the line today, their support did not go unpunished, in a sense.
Exactly.
And you maybe just speak very briefly, but that's a whole other chapter in the book that is, believe me, really compelling to read, and we can't go into all the details now, but it's one of those things where an entity leans in and provides opportunity for families speaking up to use their voice, only to invite the outrage of others within the disability community.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, we wrote the report, and again, through a friend, I was introduced to the president of Ford. So I did not, fortunately, have to go through all the different steps, but he gave me some money, and we wrote this beautiful report, everything, citations, people, people that we all know, are cited in this. And the report, it was, received very well. They gave another $50,000, and the next thing you know, it went online. The minute you put this stuff online, oh boy, I got an email. Actually, I was sitting with Charlie Colley's wife at dinner when I get an email from the president of the Ford Foundation, "Are you aware?" And they went after not just me, but the Ford Foundation. They've been betrayed by Ford. They're building institutions. It was, I'm telling you, just talking about it, it was a horrendous thing. Here, I'm a nonprofit. I don't even have a staff. And all of the usual suspects, the bullies out there, are attacking Homes for Life and Ford for building institutions. I mean, so that's sort of was another very negative turning point. And again, there was a really interesting chapter on Ford and where we are today with Ford. But I think my basic takeaway too is the power of the other side now is so phenomenal. I don't know how any of us are ever, going to be able to come back and even have this voice. Now, one thing I just want to interject here, because I don't want to forget, is Families Speaking Up was approached by A-Team USA, the Wisconsin that we're all talking about here, and Kit talked about. We voted in, I think, 2017 or 18, because we were doing the same thing as the A-Teams. So I knew Robin Kennedy, she came to Delaware, and we voted. So we're now A-Team Delaware. We're part of those 20 different states. We're all doing the same thing, trying to have our voices heard about housing about 14C. Sadly, our state is one of the states that doesn't want, we're phasing 14C out. So we're all, again, this is part of this massive group. So that's why I'm happy to be a part of A-Team USA, part of VOR, part of the, I do not have a son with autism, but I feel like I'm a part of the National Council on Severe Autism because, I think through these years, it's been little pockets of groups, while the other side is this big group. And we've all been like in little silos. And now I think the great thing that Hugo is doing is trying to bring us all under this big tent like the other groups.
Mm-hmm.
We can't just say, well, I'm about autism or about Down syndrome. I mean, my son's just good old fashioned IDD. He
Right.
doesn't fit into any category. That's what's important here.
Well, I think that is absolutely right. And what makes your memoir so timely. When Joanne opened the conference, she said, we've shown up and now we have to speak out. That same sentiment was echoed by Kit and Jill in their presentations. And it's really how you end. And it's the epilogue that you offer for your memoir, where we've all been under this same tent together. Well, many of us have been under the same tent, but as you say, the tent is growing in terms of organizations and more importantly, individuals and families who are impacted by the shifting landscape. It's like just when you think you've got your footing, ideology or policy changes for nothing more than ideology, really, certainly not person-centered needs.
Right.
So this is probably a good place to kind of wrap this up. What would your advice be for this group moving forward in terms of what can we do in light of the obstacles that we face?
Well, I think it's what we're all trying to do is trying to build these groups to go, we're so far behind because the other side has taken over, with their megaphone. Again, we keep talking about there's nothing about us without us. I keep saying, well, who's us? How do we decide? Well, Jill's also, I was taking notes, the autism for rich people. Well, what about, what happens if Robert's Group Home collapses because the agency, I say in there, I'm old, right? So we build a special needs trust. Well, how many families can build a special needs trust? She talked about guardianships. They're going against us, in Delaware. We were the second state that Ari Namin came for supported decision-making. Jill met with the people. I mean, I've known all these people fighting the fight, and my conclusion is, I don't think anyone really cares about those with more, significant disabilities. We are the most expensive population. And one of the things I get into, and that's where, I think Tamie was a big help. We have to follow Medicaid and follow these numbers. And I end by saying too, when in 1965, when Lyndon Johnson started the Medicaid system, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, I said, you hardly heard the word autism. That has exploded. I mean, autism, think about it. Look at Jill's charts, the millions of kids that are going to live a normal lifespan, and people with Down syndrome did not live that long. And now they're living longer, they're getting early onset Alzheimer's. So that's one thing. There's nothing to debate with any of these people in government. These people are here and they have to be cared for.
Right.
I don't know. So that's my message to and I want just the general public, I hope, will pick it up and kind of say to themselves, I never thought about that. That's really not right.
Right. Well, it's a beautiful book. Andrew spent hours making it look really beautiful. I mean, it's just really formatted well. It reads very well, thanks to you, Micki. I like to think of it as an instruction manual with a warning label, all intertwined with a great story. So thank you, Micki. Maybe this is a good time, Hugo, for questions, if anyone has any for Micki.
What amazes me so much about Micki is that she didn't have to do any of this. Robert was
Mhm.
pretty well taken care of. His needs were easy enough to meet, but instead somehow Micki moved tens of millions of dollars to build group homes that were just, incredible places. I mean, not only they were 4-bedroom group homes with, my understanding is they also had an extra room so that parents could come and visit if they needed to. They're in beautiful locations, they're beautiful homes. And all of a sudden, the ARC and the state of Delaware said, oh no, these are 4-bedroom homes. We want 3-bedroom homes. And it just amazes me. But Micki came around to realizing how bizarre the industry of developmental disability services is. And very many of the things that Jill brought up became clear. And Micki has been a great advocate for a full continuum of care. And Micki has been incredible in her fight to do this. And her connections with other people, whether they're families or movers and shakers or whatever, she's put people together who can help each other. And she's been doing this for over 50 years now. Robert just had his birthday party. It was delayed because of COVID, but he had his 50th birthday yesterday. Big party. I text back and forth with Robert a couple of times a week. In the morning, he asked me if I've had my coffee yet, and I asked him if he's had his. And it's been a joy knowing Micki. So if anyone has any questions for Micki, please go ahead. And then after that, we will take a short break.
Thank you, Hugo, and thank you, Tamie, for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And what I hope is that the general public, that's what the general public needs to understand what's going on here. And we have no voice.
We've had several people write in the chat that they would like to read your book, Micki. So
Yes.
we will try to find a way to make it available.
So no, I think it's, sort of ready for not prime time, but maybe, Tamie and I'll look through it one more time. But I think I would like to maybe share it with some people, just sort of to read, but I'm going to share it with other people that I know personally who do not have a child with a disability. That's what's most important to me, I think, is because all of us are singing the same song here, whether, whoever kid, where are they going to live, where are they going to be in the day, who's going to take care of them. And that's our story.